much, and thank you as well to all the speakers this morning, some fantastic stuff. So as you might hear, my throat's kind of going, so if my voice goes, do forgive me. I'm usually much more of a better speaker, but there we go. Maybe if I get a pint later on, I might be able to give you a song, but there we go. And there's a few in the audience wanting that. So I'm here today to talk about my experience and a bit about my story. Now, I've grown up within a society that's said to be equal, free-thinking and accepting. My generation are known affectionately, perhaps, as the snowflake generation. We're perceived as liberal to an almost unhealthy degree, with an acceptance of everyone, no matter their gender, sexual orientation, skin colour, or indeed background. And yet, I can't help but be sceptical. Can racism be acceptable in 2019? Well, racism towards my community has been described as the last acceptable form of racism. Now, this isn't because it should be accepted, but rather because society views it as a norm, something that has always just been the case. I think about my experience growing up, the teachers that wouldn't mark my homework because I was a gypsy who wouldn't do anything with an education anyway. The countless times where people have belittled me and tried to make me feel less than them, calling me names like pikey, tink, mink, and jippo. The times where I've been followed around shops, seen as a thief based only on my ethnicity. I think about the many signs still littering Scotland that ban travellers and gypsies, just like me, from entering shops, bars and restaurants. I think about when I was that young 8-year-old boy, innocently painting near my caravan on an ancestral camp, home to my family for centuries, when that man tried to run me over as he screamed out abuse. His hatred for my people causing him to hate an innocent child. I think about last year when another man threatened to shoot me on my train home to Aberdeen. The fact that nobody came to my support as he looked into my eyes and told me that if he had a gun, he would shoot all travellers, including children, because to him, we were all scum. Statistics say travellers experience the worst inequalities on every measure that the state has. Travellers experience higher rates of depression, higher levels of suicide, higher infant mortality, and a life expectancy by at least 10 years than that of the non-traveller population. But statistics only tell half of the story. They don't tell you of that mother who contacted me this winter because she was evicted from her camp the day before Christmas, scared she and her children would have nowhere safe to stay during the bad weather. Statistics don't tell you about the midwife who refused to visit another traveller mother because she lived on a traveller site, leaving her without care. Nor do statistics tell you of the ambulance that refused to enter a traveller's camp to help an old man who had collapsed, an old man who was forced to wait until one of his sons drove him to the end of the site before his ambulance would take him. The statistics don't tell you about the time my family were attacked, young people throwing boulders at our caravans, my mum trying to comfort my little sister as they cried, and when we called the police, they refused to come and help. These thoughts are what fill my mind whenever I hear these mentions of an egalitarian, snowflake-filled society. But please don't just take my experience. All we need to do is look at the news. Populism fills Facebook feeds. On Twitter, politicians call for bans on Muslims. People attack and burn synagogues. Not to even mention divisions in our society, with politicians using words like crisis to describe families fleeing war zones, and post boxes to mock how a woman expresses her faith. Across Europe, we are seeing the rise of neo-Nazi and extreme far-right groups on an unprecedented rate since the Second World War. With neo-Nazi factions springing up, even here in Scotland, I think it's about time society stops believing we live in an egalitarian time void of racism and persecution. And it's at this time we need to come together in solidarity to support the inclusion and promote the well-being of all members of our society. It's at times like these, events like today, are so crucial. And it's at this time when we must all become human rights defenders. I was once told activism is the rent we pay for living on this earth. And whilst at times I've had to remind myself I do have to pay rent, bills, and I can't afford to do everything out of goodwill, I also know that I'm part of something bigger. A social change that I'll be proud to have been part of in old age. I'll be one of the people who can say, I did something. I didn't wait for someone to do it for me, nor did I just stand and watch. But I didn't get myself on this stage today. I owe it to strong leadership. My first steps in activism and campaigning for my people were taken with the support of people who believed in me. And I owe much of my confidence and optimism to these initial steps. These people were what inspired me to stand up for my rights, to question the status quo, and to hope for a better world. I would not be where I am today if it were not for that initial encouragement and that initial helping hand. So many young people have the same story as me, and so many more will have in the future. All we need is for someone to believe in us. When you talk to communities experiencing inequality, what you will find is never a singular inequality, nor is it even a singular problem. What you will find is an array of social inequalities which catalyse to create the first perceived problem. To effectively support communities to reduce and build social equity, we need to detangle this intersectionality of inequality. We need to work across disciplines and experiences to build a better understanding of social inequality, if it is ever to be positively challenged. This conference does exactly that. It's an opportunity to share good practice and learning, to create trust and build mutual understanding amongst organisations, to increase collaboration, ultimately identifying the intersectionalities of inequality which exist and empowering communities in effective, long-lasting change. Friends and colleagues, injustice, inequality and discrimination are taught. They are not natural and they are not automatic. They are learned behaviour based on ignorance and a lack of understanding. We can choose here to end racism, discrimination and prejudice. We can choose to instead teach acceptance, understanding and inclusion. We can choose to ensure that all children grow up healthy, happy and comfortable, no matter their gender, sexual orientation, skin colour or indeed background. One day I hope to have children, and my children will be taught, as I was, about their rich history and heritage as Scottish travellers. They will be taught to value, as I was, their Indigenous language, stories and songs. They will travel, as I have, to their ancestral camps and learn our nomadic way of life. However, unlike me, my hope is that they will grow in a world where they will never have to hide who they are, where they will have the same opportunities as other children, and Scotland will be proud to have them as Nac and Hantal, Scottish traveller people. My hope lies upon every one of you here today. It relies upon your willingness to redesign the system, to admit when you don't know the answers, but make the effort to learn, to question your own prejudice, and to do everything you can to challenge racism in any form that it takes. This hope, the hope for a better future and for real social change, is to me the soul of community development. You can see it in a development worker's eyes. They have their eyes fixed on a better future, a fairer future, a future for everyone. Yesterday I was privileged to learn of Maori knowledge systems and the importance of Indigenous knowledge in today's world. So let me end by sharing a saying, famous among my community, the Indigenous Scottish Nacan. Nacan will be a ní until the Bean Gadget bings in the lichtman. Travellers will be with us until doomsday in the afternoon. And it's my hope that all communities can work together to ensure that this will be the case, that my children will be able to live free of persecution and racism, and that their place as Indigenous people of Scotland will be valued and not condemned. Thank you for listening.